On this episode of AV Week, Verix has gotten sold to a VC company. D&B has joined the AVNU Alliance. And we talk about combining entertainment and security systems. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
AV Week is brought to you by our fine group of underwriters, companies like Biamp. This is AV Week, episode 257, recorded Friday, July 29th, 2016. Recombinant.
Ready.
AV Week.
Performing scan.
AV Week.
Online.
This is AV Week. AV Week. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. Good Friday to you if you're watching live. If not, then whatever day of the week you chose to download this podcast, thank you for doing so. With us to talk about all the news and information for AV, first and foremost, my buddy pal, Ernie Beck from the beautiful state of Maryland, Sonero. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Tim. How are you?
Doing well. Also with us, one of the smartest guys that I know. His name is Joe Cornwall. He is from La Grande, and he has the coolest title. What is your title?
I am the technology evangelist.
Evangelist. Dude.
Evangelist. I'm here to preach about the future of our wonderful industry and tell you that there is indeed hope.
Technology evangelist. That's just, understand, my grandfather was an old Assembly of God pastor. So just the fact that you've got evangelist in your title is just freaking awesome. And last but not least, one of the best editors I know in the business. Her name is Lindsay Adler. She's rolling her eyes at me if you can't watch the video. And she's from SCN. How are you, ma'am?
That was actually my aw shucks. It was not an
Okay. No. You are, seriously.
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
She's out of the grand city of New York, so she is in the wonderful. If you never get a chance to go by the New Bay offices, the New Bay is who owns SCN. They have a cool thing. They have they actually have bays, and they're different colors, and it's really cool. So it's a play on their
to
name.
Help everybody know where to go.
Okay. So what color is your bay?
I'm in the blue bay, and I remember that because it's the boring bay. It used to be a lot more boring. It used to be really quiet around these parts, but people come and go, and it's a little bit more lively than it used to be when I first started.
All right, blue bay. I'll have to remember that next time I get to New York. All right, let's kick this off. Actually, this comes from us. It's from avnetwork.com, which is Lindsay's publications website. A good friend of the show, of AVNation in general, Tom Berry, runs a company his dad started called Verix. Verix has now sold to a investment group called Five Crowns Capital. Actually, the group was led by Five Crowns Capital. This is, by my count, the sixth or seventh purchase by a VC of an AV company in the last 3 months. I say the last 3 months. Understand this is the end of July. So starting around 2 or 3 weeks before InfoComm 2016, there started being a lot of talk about venture capitalists and IT companies and people who have traditionally been looking at how to make money by purchasing companies and turning them around. It happened around the end of May. That was when the original Polycom conversation started. That obviously got switched to a different company. Lindsay, we're going to start with you. First question, what does this mean for Verix, and what does this mean for the integration landscape in the States?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, really, and that's what this really presents to me. It's interesting to me. I'm glad that you have a count of how many companies, because I've sort of lost count. That's off
the top of my head. That's not an official count. So.
Well, and so I have to counter that. How many of those were integrators, and how many were manufacturers? 2? Right. AVISPL. Is there another one?
I'm sorry, no. That's the second integrator. So you're right.
Okay, so anyway, and this is more interesting than that, I think, because Verix is a family-owned company, so this is a much bigger deal, I think, for them than it was for AVI, which was essentially changing hands. in venture capital. So this really presents a lot of questions for me. Is it a sign that things are? It could go either way, really. Is it a sign that they needed some help and they needed a transformation, and this firm is coming in to do that, or is it, what it says at face value, that they are looking to take it to the next level, and that this new owner is going to do it for them. And it's great to see that they're retaining the existing management team. So that's always a big what if when it comes to this sort of thing. And it's really a sign to me too that I think we're going to be seeing more of this still. Again, we've seen a lot of manufacturers change hands in the last couple months, but not as many integration firms. But I think this is a sign that who's next? That's what I want to know.
Who's next? So let me make a small plug for SCN. Every year you guys do a top 50 integrators, right? Mm-hmm. Self-reporting, you don't have to do it, right? This is where you send in, I have an integration company, ABC Integration out of St. Louis. I tell you I make $100 million a year. You guys, list that. Mm-hmm. Verix has been on that list for a number of years.
They were number 26 last year.
See, she knows it off the top of her head. The one thing that's very interesting about this is the fact that they're making a new company with this deal. Tom Berry Jr. is going to be the major shareholder. He's going to retain the CEO. That's different than the AVI SPL one, right? Because AVI SPL, you're right, switched one VC company for another one. This one is unique in the fact that they're starting a brand new company. What does that say? Is the fact that they're basically it's a departure from a typical VC investment or a VC buyout. The fact that they're starting this brand new company. What do you think that says?
It's hard to say. That's a good point, actually. Reading in between the lines here too is that they're calling themselves Verix LLC or whatnot. I really wish I knew the answer to that. I don't have an MBA, so that's what I would call.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. I really don't know. I have so many questions, actually. I think I'm the wrong person to ask that question.
Well, let's continue this on with Joe here. Joe, from a manufacturer standpoint, what does this do? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know that it does as much to the industry. I don't think we can judge what the impact would be on the industry by Verix basically getting a shot of capital, getting a shot of a new perspective. But let's look at a couple of factors that are really driving this. First and foremost, we're seeing that the cost of money is at a historic low, and we can sense that with the economy changing the way it is, things changing the way they are, we've got Brexit that's been thrown into this, the cost of money is going to go up. It's not going to stay artificially low forever. So it's a good time for M&A to be taking place. It's a good time for these things to be happening. And the other part of it is we're seeing a fundamental change in the fabric of the AV industry, where we're seeing growth in things like tablets and personal portable devices that are going to be integrated with AV. So we've bridged these two industries, making the traditional commercial AV industry, which is 130, $150 billion a year annual industry, now into something about twice that size. So take a very large target-rich environment, add the ability to have cheap money to put into this, and the desire for a lot of companies to take advantage of emerging trends where they see opportunities that haven't been filled, and it's ripe for this sort of thing. I think it's going to be a little bit longer before we can say what the precise fallout is within the integrator world. But the idea that other companies are investing into the AV industry tells me that this is good.
All right, well, let's bring the integrator side in here. Ernie, from your standpoint, you're not in necessarily Verix's backyard, right? Maryland, from Jersey down to Maryland. But you're in the East Coast type of thing. And understand, I'm a big dumb kid from the Midwest, so anything like east of Ohio is all like New York.
Pretty much. So, we're New York South.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what does this do? I mean, from your standpoint, obviously not anybody in your backyard, but from the overall landscape.
I think I can't really, as Lindsay said, I can't really read too much in between the lines as far as what the motivations were and what the real impetus was behind this, whether it was really just trying to expand capital and allow them to expand into different markets and open up. We're in a landscape now where companies need to be more if you're not thinking outside of your own sandbox and you're thinking nationally, multinational, to serve your clients who have those types of those large footprints, then I think you're kind of falling behind the eight ball. And I think this is maybe a good step to move in that direction for them. And I think you might see this trend happen with other burgeoning integrators that are kind of at the point where they've outgrown their small roots. They started off as a $5 million, $10 million company, but maybe they're now, much, 5-6 times, sixfold of that, where that might need to be the case. I think what concerns me is that, there's going to be a major cultural shift, because while owners of companies, especially family-owned companies, are obviously concerned with bottom line, I don't think they're as concerned. I think that they have a much greater attention to the personal elements of the job, of the company, of the entire ecosystem that is running that machine, where when you kind of strip that away and put the onus on, VC, it can change the real focus from being, yes, we care about our bottom line, but we care deeply about our clients, to we've got numbers to report, we've got numbers to hit, and really that's the focus, and the customer experience might fall or might suffer because of that. But, it's hard to say whether that's the case or not, but I've seen that happen before with other acquisitions by private equity.
All right, very good. Moving on, D&B. This comes to us from one of our overseas friends, AV Magazine. D&B is joining the Avenue Alliance. And it's interesting here because one of the things that Avenue Alliance does is they are responsible for putting together the standards and putting forth the AVB/TSN, making sure that everybody understands that, and making sure that the IEEE work group, they provide that and they market that and make sure that all the little pieces are interconnected. According to product manager from D&B, the move, quote unquote, is a logical step for the company. D&B is known as a supporter of open standards such as OCA, open control architecture. Joining the Avenue Alliance and supporting AVB/TSN as open audio transport protocols is another good fit for us. Joe, from your standpoint and from a manufacturing standpoint, joining groups like the Avenue Alliance, what does that do for you as a manufacturer?
It depends so much on what you want to do from a marketing perspective and how you want to get your message out there. But it tells the industry that, hey, we're serious about this kind of technology. It lends credence and legitimacy to your efforts in that area. So basically, it's kind of like, investing in the neighborhood. Okay, we're here, we're part of this, we're taking this seriously, and we want to make products that fit into this area, because certainly it's really hard to I guess, account for the costs of being a member of the industry. It's hard to point it back to a specific sale or a specific ROI. So I think that it says that they're very serious about open technology and about growing into the ability to work with other systems that are out there. Of course, if AVB actually gets the V into it, then it's a completely different game.
All right. Ernie, from your standpoint, what does this do as somebody who looks to spec products, engineer products, and put them together? What does this do for maybe the Avenue Alliance and AVB/TSN?
Well, I think it lends some more legitimacy to that base camp. There's always been the discussion since AVB's come out that, what's going to be the next standard? Is it going to be AVB? Is it going to be Dante? Really, what's going to take over? And I don't think it's going to be one or the other. It's going to be like the AV industry is. It's going to be an amalgam of all these different types of protocols. But I think what it does is it takes a respected and well-known manufacturer and puts a feather in the AVB, cap that says we've got another company who's buying into this and who's supporting this. And I think that's good because, the V is now in AVB with some manufacturers doing encoding over the AVB network. So I think they've got the complete package, and I think this just only helps them kind of grow that brand.
Lindsay, from your standpoint, and one quick thing, Lindsay actually attended the Avenue consortium, not this year, but the last year, with our editor-in-chief, Josh Schrago. so you've gotten some deep diving with AVB and some deep diving with TSN. What does this tell you as far as where AVB and TSN and the Avenue Alliance is going, the fact that DNB has jumped on board?
Yeah, well, clearly it's a good sign in that respect that big players in the industry are buying into it. More big players are buying into it, especially when Ernie makes a great point that, it's not really about one consortium or the other anymore, even though people still try to make it about that. And, DNB already speaks Dante, so it's interesting to me that they want to add Avenue certification to their products also. So on the one hand, I wonder if, is this clearly a messaging move from them? Like, the quote in the article suggests in terms of supporting open systems, which is not something that enough manufacturers, I think, talk about really these days. So I think that's a good sign from a symbolic sense. Or is it, about what it actually changes for their dealers? Getting the dealer perspective, what it means to them if they see it as significant, or if again it's more about this whole open conversation in the industry. But yes, again, I really think Ernie hit the nail on the head when he said that it's not about one or the other anymore, and there are people having that conversation because that's what it's really about. You can use whatever you want, yeah. and it's less about who's winning and who's better and whatnot. It's let's just all speak the same common languages and do what we're going to do, make the systems better.
I love that. Most manufacturers don't like the common language, but I absolutely love that part. So,
well, the sooner they, Tim, the sooner they, realize that we live in a society where people like choice, and they, it's a capitalist society, so there's going to be competition. It's not going to be all one or the other. I think DNB just makes the point that look, our hands are our perspective is we're going to play nice with everybody the best we can, and that only opens up more possibilities for their products to be spec'd in.
And it goes back to I've had manufacturers tell me this for years. If I ask what I consider a silly question about, are you going to do this or are you going to do that? Manufacturers have said to me, "Hey, look, we're coin operated, right? We make products to make money." And we had a conversation at Super Tuesday this past InfoComm. And I was making the case that the VGA is dead, right? That was my hypothesis. And I had a panel of people to tell me why I was wrong. And the manufacturer on the panel was from Harman. He said, look, people still buy it, right? People still buy VGA, buy the droves in enough that we still make products that have the VGA connector, the DB15 on it. When people stop buying it, we'll stop making it. Mm-hmm. And that was, again, fascinating, the fact that here we are, depending on where you place the analog sunset, right? Some people put 2011, some people say 2013. I talked to a guy the other day, he said 2008, right? But regardless, the sunset has happened, yeah. And yet manufacturers are still making products with analogs in it because people are still buying it. It goes back to D&B, right? They're making a product and incorporating a spec because people are asking for it and because people are looking for that. So.
Well, it's really going to matter on when the laptops that people are using with VGA connections are going to cycle themselves out of a refresh cycle, because until those are gone, users are going to need them.
There's always adapters, Ernie. There's always adapters.
It's actually a very interesting conversation. This happened inside of my own company, where it was pointed out to me that our number one selling product is a DisplayPort to VGA adapter, and therefore my position that DisplayPort is the most important connector for this part of the 21st century was wrong, because VGA was still out there. I had to kind of point out that it was only VGA on one end of the adapter. Mm-hmm. So, when you look at this, it really is an anchor to the legacy. It's an anchor to the past. Analog's dead, man, right? I mean...
but it's not dead yet.
It's gone.
It's feeling better.
It's deadish.
You can still buy lead additive for gasoline.
Oh, wow. Holy cow.
Gasoline is important.
All right, show of hands. How many of us have ever had a car that actually took leaded gasoline? Joe would be the only one. Okay.
Still have one.
Still have one. Of course you do. All right, let's move on here. I totally lost there's the top of it. Lindsay, sometimes your website jumps around on me. This actually goes back to AV Network.
Atlas, just trying to make sure you're paying attention.
Well, there's that. Atlas IED puts in Unified Airport PA and EVAC at DFW. the first part is not that, yay, Atlas IED is a DFW. That's not the important part. The important part is the unified part, the combined part. Ernie, I'm going to start with you on this one. Real quick crib notes on this. Atlas IED was the manufacturer for this. It's a combination entertainment / emergency notification system. And one of the quotes in there was actually very fascinating, is the fact that the new unified approach to a single communication platform that provides excellent intelligibility, automation, which is important, monitoring, and system management is inspiring more airports to plan on adopting similar systems. So, question to you, Ernie, Mr. Integrator. Does stuff like this and installations like this, do they provide a good template for guys like you where you're like, oh my gosh, that's cool, I should do that, or I should put that in my back pocket somewhere? Or are installations like this more one-offs where you go, you know what, that's kind of cool, but it doesn't really apply to me?
No. Well, first off, Mr. Integrator, I'm going to start calling myself that from now on, Tim, so thank you. Second, I think this article proves a couple of points. One, that smart technology is now changing systems like traditional PA, nurse call, these kind of like analog, dumb microphone speaker systems into these massive complex networks that are intelligent. And I think what that's doing is that's opening up another market to those value-based integrators who have IT acumen, who have programming, who can think big picture. So I think it actually bodes well for the AV integration market, first off. Second off, this is the trend that's going to be happening. Going back to the article about D&B with open communication protocols, everything that's going to be riding on the network, it's not just about riding on the network for riding on the network's sake. It's because there needs to be integration with multiple platforms. And it's not just entertainment and PA. It's entertainment, it's PA, it's EVAX, it's fire alarm, it's wayfinding. This system actually encompasses multiple systems. So as we move into the smart building market, right, as we move into whatever you want to term that as, smart building or intelligent buildings, we're looking at combining multiple platforms that can create, that quote that you pulled up, I had that highlighted too, more intelligent, higher degrees of automation, all with the purposes of streamlining automation and creating a better experience for the people at the airport, a safer experience, a more intelligent experience. For example, at BWI, our airport near us, a couple years ago, you drive into the express garage, and every floor of the express garage has the number of open available spaces, because each parking space has a sensor on it. And now you pull into that space. So now I know that floor 3 has 5 available spaces. I zip up there, I find my space. It turns on the light when I pull into the parking space. I mean, combine that with what Atlas IED did at Dallas Fort Worth, and you're looking at pretty much an end-to-end smart solution. So I think this opens up boundless opportunities for today's integrator. I think if you're not on your IT game, you're going to be falling behind.
Lindsay, I mentioned that this is from you guys from AVNetwork.com. You guys cover a lot of different manufacturers. Obviously, you go to a lot of the same trade shows we do. We talk to a lot of the same people. As I'm reading this and understanding that you guys are writing it, how many other manufacturers and maybe even integrators do you think could pull off something like this? This whole integrated smart building, use a term that Ernie used, smart facility, right? Because it's an airport. It's not just one building or one area. It's a smart facility. How many other manufacturers and integrators do you think could pull this off?
That is an interesting question. On the manufacturer side, it's funny. I think if you pose that at a manufacturer, many of them
we can all do it. Yes.
Right, because they all do everything today. I think Atlas IED is in a very unique position, and it's no surprise that they're doing this. I think this really hits their sweet spot. But as far as other manufacturers, I could think of a few off the top of my head that are definitely trying to. It's a matter of, I haven't seen any implementation like this. And I think the airport installation for it is a top example too, because these are highly complex systems that are overused and most of them are really terrible. I'm a bit of a travel cynic. Anyone who travels a lot, this is a huge problem that it's solving. And actually, one of my responses to it was, hearing is believing. Now I want to go to DFW and actually see how intelligible the system is, because, again, I even living in New York City and, riding the subway every day, intelligibility is just a joke, and it's not exclusive to any location really at all. But back to your question in terms of who could pull this off, I really think probably a small handful of manufacturers could, and I have faith in more integrators, though. I think there are a good number of them, big and mid-sized, I would say, who do really hit this space. Ford AV, of course, they were the prime integrator on this because they do a lot of these type of installations. So it's interesting too with the shift in the market. I think how a lot of integrators are making a lot of money on the corporate installs now, and that's a great thing. And I don't see this type of integration skill translating as easily. So I think moving forward, you probably it's the folks who are highly specialized and have been highly specialized in this area that can pull it off, and I think we've got a good number of those. Again, I'm thinking back to our top 50 list right now, where probably a good half of them could handle something like this at least. But
go ahead, Joe.
No, that was it.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Oh, I think I was just going to circle back how now I have to go there, even though I just booked a flight to Dallas and I booked it into Love's Field without even thinking about this, just because I like that airport better.
I do like that airport. I'm a big Southwest guy, though, so that's me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, Joe, from a manufacturer standpoint, this is obviously a big installation. How do you get jobs like this? Because this is not... Well, here's the thing. Not for nothing. John Ivey, I'm going to say he's my best friend, but I've known John for a number of years. Good guy, right? Just a down-to-earth guy. Very smart, very energetic. If you've ever sat down with John for more than 5 minutes, you need a nap afterwards. But he had to have worked on this on some level, Joe. So as a manufacturer, how do you get jobs like this?
That's a really good question, and I want to kind of circle back to something Lindsay said, that there are manufacturers out there who are going to say, well, yeah, we can do all of that. We have all of those pieces. I've got to honestly say that anytime I hear a manufacturer thinks they can do all of these things, that's a manufacturer that's bravado. Okay. You have specialists, you have specialties, you have capabilities. And what amazes me about this is the players are all top-notch players. To put this thing together took so much talent, but somebody had to have the vision that we could put these pieces together and make it happen. And what I think we're seeing is a harbinger of a fundamental change in the AV industry, and that is the influence of this Internet of Things and this convergence of different technologies, right? So convergence isn't everything goes onto the network. Convergence is all of these smaller tasks that we need to do in a space, such as being in an airport and being able to have legible calls for traffic control, but also have emergency capabilities that can override that. These systems are interactive. They come back to one centralized system, but they also have edge computing systems to gather the information locally and keep it zoned. So it really does come back to this vision of how the different pieces of technology that are emerging today from our computerized world can be put together in new and interesting ways. This is, a recombinant innovation, I think is the phrase that I've heard.
Recombinant?
Yes, taking things that are invented by other people and putting together in new and interesting ways, recombining them and innovating new approaches by using these parts. So this is kind of what we're seeing, this idea that suddenly the emergency paging system can be part of the public address system, can be part of the LAN, but also has to have a lot of local elements. So when you're circling back to your question, how does a manufacturer get into this kind of a project? I haven't worked on something like Dallas-Fort Worth, but I have flown there recently, and it is quite a sterling installation. But from a manufacturer's point of view, you have to be a truly valuable partner to the integration firms. You have to be dependable. You have to provide them with good information. And you also have to be a very good partner with the industry organizations to see what emerging trends are out there so that you can have valuable input and valuable devices that can be leveraged into these systems. If I just go in there with the same thing and say, do it my way, that does nothing for the creativity which is really being driven at the integrators level, because those are the folks dealing with the tasks and the customers and have the best understanding of what a good outcome should look like.
Yeah, that is the art of AV, which is sometimes the beauty of it. So, and Joe,
Tim,
go ahead, Aaron.
Could I build off something that a thought that Joe was just talking about? I think he's bringing up. I think he's scratching the surface of a really good point to it. I think this opens up a big opportunity for the manufacturers who are going to start creating platforms that integrate either other systems or other processes. I think it opens up service opportunities for them, because if you make an intelligent system like that and you put it all on the integrator to install and commission, you're putting a lot of faith on that integrator to get it right. And I think what it does is it opens up the opportunity for manufacturers to say, look, you sell the system, you install it, you do a level of commissioning, but we're also going to mandate that we put a certain amount of engineering time in this to make sure the commissioning goes correctly. And I think that you're going to see a greater collaboration between the manufacturers and the integrators to get these systems right, rather than you sell it, hey, hands off, we'll support it on the back end.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Go ahead. Nope.
Yeah, I also want to jump in. Joe made a lot of really great points, and the one that I like the most is this idea of how cutting edge and how big of an idea this is, just from a concept to actually unite these systems. And I think what it is it's a big deal for the industry to be able to do that, and I think it's actually very intuitive from a consumer sense, just by saying, well, why wouldn't you have your PA system and your emergency system together? I mean, announcements are announcements. And I think that's the way a lot of people, a lot of consumers out there think. But traditionally, from a technological perspective, it wasn't possible. And now, again, we get back to the convergence topic where, well, it is possible now to put them on the same network and make it work together. And it's kind of a simple idea. Like, why didn't anyone think of that before? And now it can work. And that's why it's a big deal to me also.
Well, that's a brilliant point.
Companies like SCN and other companies and shows like this podcast have got such a part to play in this, because what we're really doing is letting folks know that this kind of innovation, this kind of out-of-the-box thinking, it's not that it was impossible previously to combine the paging system and the emergency system. It's that it wasn't allowed. These were separate countries. These had different inspectors and different rules and different codes, and it's about education. It's about us sitting back and saying, look, here's how technology has profoundly changed the thing that you're an expert in. And let's try and find a way so that we can take all of these elements and move them into the 21st century so we can increase the efficiency of the industry as a whole.
Perfect. I like that. This is cool. All right. For those of you going to CEDIA, make sure you route through DFW now and go through that one. I'll have to do that. So, all right, guys.
Have them little hot dogs they sell down there, little corn dog things.
I'm with Lindsay. I typically go through Love and go by. There's a barbecue place in Love called Dickie's, and that's one I'll typically eat at.
Been there, done that.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, guys. Jeez, we're talking about food on a Friday afternoon. Ernie,
don't get me started.
No kidding.
Talk about beer next.
Never mind. Ernie Beck, Sonero. How can people find you? And thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Tim. You can find me on Twitter at Ernie_Beck. You can also follow my networking group in the Baltimore, D.C. area at integrate_be more, or you can call me at Sonero.
Very good. Mr. Cornwall, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a blast as always. And, keep up with me on @JoeCornwall on Twitter. I've always got something to say. That's probably a residual effect of the Red Bull.
All right. Last but not least, my buddy, Miss Lindsay Adler. Thank you, ma'am.
Well, people can find me on Twitter at Lindsay M. Adler and SCN online at AVNetwork.com.
Yup, she is the fabulous editor-in-chief. You are editor-in-chief, right?
We just call it editor, but it's the same.
Yeah, same thing. All right. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me. One quick couple program notes. Chris Netto of AVNation and myself will be in Boston, technically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but the event is on Tuesday. It's an Infocom on campus deal. So if you're watching this live or you're listening to this early in the week and you're in that area, come by and see us. It's an Infocom on campus. He and I are going to be talking about technology. Whole bunch of really great people will be talking as well. Also coming up in a couple of weeks, we've got 2 or 3 news shows that are coming out. We have a brand new one called MHO, which is actually one of Chris's shows. And we have a new couple hosts, one for State of Control and one for EdTech. So watch for those new episodes coming out as well. But yeah, go by the website if you would, please, AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. You will find this program, those programs, and a host of others. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. That's all the time we have for AV Week.